Let's talk to Sir John Redwood, former Shadow Secretary of State former Shadow Secretary of State of Business and Trade for the UK, former Minister, of course, as well. Sir John, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I'm afraid that I seem to be running against the tide this morning because I was rather embarrassed by Keir Starmer's performance yesterday in the White House, and everybody in the newspapers this morning seems to be talking about how well he did and, you know, how he managed to secure a good meeting with the president, and, you know, it's got to be good for Britain. I just spoke to Tom Tugan, how he sort of the same thing, and I do get that, but I'm sorry, I just think that some of the things that he said and did not put Britain in the greatest of lights. It looked to me as though there was no equality in the relationship. It was very much the sort of, the boy and the man, wasn't it?
Well, he threw away a golden opportunity. I mean, I share your anger about it all. And I remember with a few others, right at the beginning when President Trump was first elected, advising the government and said, President Trump likes the United Kingdom. He'd like to come on a state visit. He's well disposed towards us. He actually wants a free trade deal. We know that because he was keen on it last time, and Mrs. May and the government said they weren't ready because of some EU rule or other. And so I said, send them a draft free trade agreement and then go for a meeting when you've got a win-win deal to sign.
Right.
He came away completely empty-handed from that meeting. He had enormous goodwill. Of course, they got on perfectly well together because President Trump was a very good host, and he wanted to be friendly, and he's very happy to come on a state visit. But there's nothing to show for it. I mean, they're wasting negotiating capital on trying to persuade America to sign up to the dreadful Chagos deal, which is bad for Western security, bad for the naval base, and very bad for British taxpayers. And they clearly haven't even briefed the president on that, because the president believed it's a 140-year lease and it's a 99-year lease.
Right.
And we in Britain still are not allowed any of the details of this rotten deal, and we have to get them from the Mauritius Parliament. And Mr. Starmer is really letting us down on all this, and it was a shocking waste of opportunity yesterday.
Yes. Because it seemed to me, judging by the way that he was talking and acting, that what he wanted was not to be humiliated. I mean, that seemed to be the main sort of, which of course was never going to happen. As you say, Donald Trump is a very good host and would never do such a thing anyway, because it would be rather rude to do so. But, you know, rather than concentrating, as you say, on the fundamentals of getting something out of the meeting, he just wanted to have a nice meeting and sort of a couple of nice photo opportunities, a couple of nice exchanges, which really don't mean much of anything, really.
Well, indeed, and you know, I've been appalled at how bad the Labour government has been at spinning ever since they arrived in office, because I thought they'd be good at that. This was an occasion when I think they did actually get back to the old Manson-style spin playbook. So they spent a few days saying it would be an impossible meeting, extremely difficult for Sir Keir, very difficult to get on with a man like Trump, and so don't expect anything. And then because they get on in a perfectly friendly way, agreeing absolutely nothing, they come out and claim a triumph and say, there we are. Sweetness and light, isn't he a star, Sir Keir, because he's managed to tame the Trump, which of course was untrue, because President Trump didn't need taming.
No, exactly right. So where do we go from here then? Because, you know, even there doesn't seem to be much really that came out of it about Ukraine either, and about whether there would be any kind of, you know, peacekeeping force which might involve Britain or Europe, whether there would be any kind of, rapprochement from the Russian side of things. Volodymyr Zelensky is going there, I think, today to talk to Trump. But, you know, you've absolutely nailed it, because in addition to my embarrassment at how he behaved, you've actually raised a much more important factor here, that, you know, he's come back with literally nothing.
No, nothing. And you see, I think he was wrong to pose as the spokesman for a wider Europe. Macron had already been there and set out the Anglo-French plan to put in some troops into Ukraine. A plan which had been vetoed by Germany and Poland, who don't want to put any of their own troops in. I mean, how can you have a serious European force in Ukraine if Germany and Poland are not part of it as nearer neighbours of Ukraine and with big armies? And why go over that ground again when the president had made it perfectly clear to us, the wider public, as well as presumably in the private meetings, that he was not going to give a security guarantee for any force on the continent of Europe in Ukraine, and for perfectly good reason. You know, why has the West refused to allow NATO to get engaged in this war? Well, because we don't want NATO fighting Russia. And so you can't then suddenly say, by the way, there's an effective NATO guarantee, because as soon as you add America into France and Britain and some of the other Europeans probably coming along, you've got a NATO force.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, what's your view on all of that? Because there seem to be some in this country who think that we shouldn't be, in their words, appeasing Vladimir Putin. We should be continuing to fight him and push him out of Ukraine and continue to use British taxpayers' money to fund it. I'm not one of those that thinks that.
No, I'm not one of those either. And I think the West has behaved pretty badly as a whole under Biden's leadership. Because the Biden approach, as you know, was to send too few weapons and to withhold some of the most powerful weapons so that you could keep the war going but not give Ukraine the likelihood of winning. And there's been slow attrition against Ukraine with massive number of deaths. And I think Trump is absolutely right to say that just paying enough and sending enough weapons to ensure hundreds of thousands more people die and Ukraine is wrecked even more with bomb damage is an extremely bad policy. And so I'm very pleased that the president is trying to explore whether there is some kind of peace deal or ceasefire that could lead on to the rehabilitation of Ukraine. And I hope that his meeting today with the president of Ukraine goes well, and talking about rebuilding on a joint venture basis with American civilian personnel being deployed into Ukraine to rebuild the economy. I think that's exactly what they should be doing. And there are various containment strategies for Putin. Obviously, I'm not a Putin fan, but the main containment has to be through NATO, and that means we do need to reinforce the NATO positions and make absolutely clear to Putin that those borders of NATO countries must never be violated.
Yes, I think I agree totally with everything you just said. Can I just ask you finally, before I let you go, about Mike Amesbury, the MP for Runcorn? He went back to court yesterday very quickly, very speedy appeal he managed to get. I don't know quite how he managed that. And he was going to be sentenced to 10 weeks in prison. He's now got that sentence suspended. He's got no apparent indication that he's going to stand down as an MP. I mean, surely that has to be wrong, doesn't it? Surely there must be some kind of recall, there must be some kind of by-election held for a man who thinks it's all right to sort of beat up his constituents.
Well, I would imagine his constituents will up the pressure on him, even if there isn't a legal way. Surely any MP is sensitive to public opinion, and he pleaded guilty to this, and we can see what he did. Right. It's dreadful. It's completely unacceptable for anybody to do that, but for someone who holds public office and is meant to be representing the people he's hitting, it's just a complete scandal. And I hope his constituents make that crystal clear to him, because I think he should do the decent thing for once and resign.
Yes, quite. So John Redwood, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great weekend. Former Shadow Secretary of State for Business and Trade in the UK, of course.